Episode 113 this week, The Emissary. I enjoyed this title so much they used it for Deep Space Nine and gave the title of Emissary to Captain Sisko. But for this episode, The Emissary, the crew of the Enterprise is playing poker for a very long time to start. They're just playing poker, and Worf's getting frustrated because they're talking and not just strictly playing poker. And Pulaski's out of chips, but they deal her into the next game anyway. The game gets broken up because they get a transmission from the starbase. It turns out there's a mission they have to attend to, but Starfleet doesn't give them any details. They're like, go do this mission. They ask what the mission is. They're like, never you mind that, just go. So the Enterprise goes to where they're supposed to rendezvous, and there's a probe that's coming at them at Warp 9. There's enough room for one person after they rip out the guts of the thing and install like some devices for some oxygen. They beam this probe aboard, open it up, and there's a Klingon. Turns out she's actually half Klingon, half human. Dr. Pulaski was for words, but we'll learn in Star Trek Voyager she shouldn't have been because there was precedence apparently. Fiona Torres was a half Klingon, half human. So even if this Klingon was the first, they should have had enough examples to not be surprised. But this particular Klingon human hybrid is named Kalar. She's the apparently emissary between Starfleet and the Klingon Empire. Her mission was to stop a Klingon ship that had gone into deep space and was in suspended animation because they were set to awaken and they would be in Federation space near Federation outpost, and these Klingons don't realize the war's been over for decades. So the fear was they'd just start attacking, and the Klingon Empire wouldn't be able to get ships in time to these outposts to ward off the Klingons that had been in suspended animation this whole time. So Picard tells the crew, okay, figure out a plan so we can stop these Klingons. Worf doesn't want any part of it. He doesn't like Kalar. He tries to get out of the assignment. Picard's like, is there a personal reason why? And Worf's like, yes. He's like, how about a professional reason? And Worf's like, no. Then he withdraws it. And he has to work with Kalar. They obviously have some sort of history together, but we never learn what that history is in this episode. They end up, of course, arguing. Then later, Kalar goes into the holodeck and is doing Worf's calisthenics program. Worf goes in, they beat up all the holographic monsters, and then they mate, and Worf wants to marry Kalar. He does this Klingon wedding ceremony apparently, and she's like, you're out of your mind, I don't want to do that. And then Worf gets all mad again, and they're back to arguing. But then towards the end, Worf and Kalar come up with this idea. They have Worf pose as a captain of the ship, and he orders the Klingons to stand down, tells them to wait for reinforcements to come, and they'll explain everything. So the Klingons acquiesce, and everything's fine. They just did a little subterfuge using Worf as the de facto captain. Then Kalar leaves, but you had a feeling she'd be back, which she would be. Well, it was kind of an episode. It was there. It moved slowly, very slowly. There was no B plot, unless you count the poker game to set up the episode. That was basically it. It was a Worf-heavy episode. Some interesting notes in this one. Susie Blackson played Kalar. She'd been a Klingon, or actually a Vulcan doctor in an earlier episode. She would reprise Kalar one more time even though she was only in 2 episodes, she's kind of got a cult following on like the minds of the Star Trek fans. And she would go on to be the female Q in Voyager. So she's been around Star Trek for a while in a few different roles, but never regularly occurring. Also, they messed up the poker game a bit with Pulaski clearly saying she'd run out of chips, and then they dealt her back in the game, but she had nothing to bet with when she dealt into the next game. That was a little faux pas, apparently. They didn't catch that. It's also the start of this like series-long story arc with Worf, where this episode with K'Ehleyr led to his son being born, which was a several season span, even bleeding into Deep Space Nine a little bit. So without this episode, we wouldn't have had Alexander, who will come into play in future seasons. So it was a pivotal episode, just a slow moving one. So that's pretty much Emissary.